her with bravery and undreamed-of patience, and the whole world rallied to their aid. But 3 years later, Florence is still unrecovered. NET Festival presents a documentary study of the events which are strangling the efforts to restore the city. Be sure to watch Why Save Florence, Friday at 7 on TV 13. A barren 18-year-long marriage is finally ended when Soames wins his divorce from Irene this week on the Forsyte Saga. This divorce is one of the most important events in John Galsworthy's epic story. It paves the way for both partners to remarry, leading to a new generation of Forsytes who will carry the family's tragic legacy into the 20th century. Be watching this Thursday at 9:30 as NET presents Kenneth Moore and Eric Porter in the Forsyte Saga, right here on Channel 13. KERA TV 13, Dallas.
I'm Jim Ware, and this is Newsroom, a program of local news, analysis, and opinion.
Mr. Chairman, Wyoming's vote will make a majority for Senator Kennedy. Mr. Chairman, I should like to move that the vote be made unanimous for that great American, Senator Kennedy of Massachusetts, the next President of the United States.
The motion is that the rules be suspended and that John F. Kennedy be nominated for President of the United States by acclamation.
We stand today on the edge of a new frontier, the frontier of the 1960s, the frontier of unknown opportunities and perils, the frontier of unfilled hopes and unfilled threats. This state of Texas, this country of the United States, was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. 2,000 years ago, the proudest boast was, Civis Romanus Sum. Today, in the world of freedom, the proudest boast is, Ich bin ein Berliner.
Mr. Vice President, Jim Wright, Governor, Senator Yarborough, Mr. Bach, ladies and gentlemen, there are no faint hearts in Fort Worth, and I appreciate your being here this morning. Mrs. Kennedy is organizing herself. It takes longer. But, of course, she looks better than we do when she does it. But we appreciate your welcome. This city's been a great western city. The defense of the West, cattle, oil, and all the rest.
When our generation has passed away, when the tongues of praise and comment now speaking have turned to a cold, dumb dust, it will be written that John F. Kennedy walked with the American people in their vast diversity and gave them all he had toward their moving on into new phases of their great human adventure.
John Fitzgerald Kennedy was born in Brookline, Massachusetts on May the 29th, 1917. He was the son of Joseph Patrick and Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy. He graduated from Harvard University. He married Jacqueline Lee Bouvier September the 12th, 1953, and they had 3 children, Caroline Bouvier, John Fitzgerald, Patrick Bouvier. He served in Congress from 1947 to 1953 and was a United States Senator from Massachusetts from 1953 to 1961. He was elected President of the United States in 1960, inaugurated in 1961. He served with the United States Navy from 1941 to 45. He was the author of Why England Slept, Profiles in Courage, which won the Pulitzer Prize in 1957, Strategy of Peace, and To Turn the Tide. He was assassinated in Dallas on November the 22nd, 1963. He is buried in Arlington National Cemetery. And at 10 o'clock this morning in Dallas, a memorial to John Fitzgerald Kennedy was dedicated in a brief ceremony. Darwin Payne.
About 250 people gathered at the ceremony this morning. John Shokop, chairman of the Kennedy Memorial Commission, presided. Mr. Shokop said that he believes Dallas residents will be proud of the monument for many, many years. He said, "It is unique, it is timeless, and I know all of you share my feelings for its importance to the city." He then introduced the many people directly involved in the construction of the memorial. These included the County Commissioner's Court. They donated the county land on which the monument stands. Members of the City Council, and the City of Dallas will be responsible for the upkeep of the plaza, and individuals who played key roles in the actual construction. These included Robert McKee of the McKee Construction Company. They did the construction work. Bob Rogers, president of Texas Industries, the firm which did the precast work. Eddie May of Southwest Laboratories, the firm which did the casting work. Architects Clarence Overbeck, the county architect, and Don Nelson and Bill Everett of Associated Architects and Engineers, a countywide group. And the man who did the engineering for the monument, Lev Zetlin, who offices both in New York City and Charlottesville, Virginia. Mr. Shokop also pointed out that hundreds of thousands of persons had made contributions toward the memorial, and that the then mayor, Earl Cabell, who now is congressman from Dallas, and County Judge W.L. Sterrett got together to name a group of civic leaders to head the commission charged with developing the memorial. From this point on, our film tells a story.
As I've said, the memorial, the concept of the memorial, I think has been put beautifully and will be put even better later on, but let me read you one short paragraph that will be put in black granite here at the site. This was written by the architect Philip Johnson, and I think it captures the spirit of this memorial. He says, "This cenotaph in honor of President Kennedy I conceive as a place of quiet refuge, an enclosed place of thought and contemplation, separated from the city around, but near the sky and earth. To commemorate the man John Fitzgerald Kennedy, there is within only a stone marker and the engraved name." Gentlemen, at this time I would like to introduce our County Judge, Lou Sterrett, who'd like to speak.
Thank you very much, John. Dawson Sterling, Mr. Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, and young people. This is a great occasion. May I ask you to just look around at this complex. You know, when these buildings were demolished, we destroyed 37 flop houses, beer joints, and whiskey stores. And then I would like to start over here with the Dealey Plaza. In fact, I like to pause over here once in a while because that statue over there, it demonstrates one thing, that this county has always been blessed by stalwarts. Mr. Dealey's Plaza is a good place to stop and meditate every once in a while. And then, of course, I'd like to go on down the Trinity River. Many can visualize a beautiful lake back of the old red courthouse. And then, of course, the marvelous, one of the greatest industrial districts, the Stemmons Industrial District, on down the other direction. And then you come back around this direction and you
find the Times Herald, another stalwart, Mr. Keith, that worked with Mr. Dealey so long to build a good, sound community. Then we come on around to the Overtons that had the dream. And it is a fantastic thing. Main Place won. Then, of course, we can look over here at our junior college that Bob Thornton Jr. had the vision. And I predict that this will be one of the greatest junior colleges in all America. Then we come on back around to the Goya complex between the auditorium and the Dallas Morning News and WFAA, which will be a fantastic complex. Then, of course, we don't want to forget Mr. Thornton, Sr. I remember when we approached him about this complex, he said, well, son, I've never had all the answers, but if I can gather enough people around me, we'll find the answers. And he did just exactly that. Then, of course, John Stimmon's arguing with us about the greenery down here. You see this block over here? That will be another plaza. And in my opinion, this is going to be one of the greatest spots in the county of Dallas. And I want to express my appreciation to the commissioners here this morning for having worked with the Kennedy Committee and all concerned in bringing this about. And Mr. Marcus, we're grateful to you for having found Mr. Philip Johnson. So we're all rather proud of this complex. And it tells one great story, that when leaders work together as a team, it brings about great things. Thank you.
Let me ask one person to stand up, and that's Dawson Sterling of now New York City. Dawson is the former chairman of the Kennedy Commission and the man that did most of the work for the longest period of time. Dawson? The next person I'd like to introduce is Bob Cullum, whom you all know. Bob is the vice chairman of the Kennedy Commission and a grand guy. Bob Cullum.
Thank you, John. Before I get into the very brief remarks that I have prepared for this morning, I can't let this occasion go by to do something that he in his modesty can't do, and that is to say how vital to this event has been the work of John Shokoff, who, when Dawson had to, going on 7 fast and frantic years, laden with new burdens, fraught with many frustrations, going on 7 years long in the light of our impatience for the achievement of this day, but going on 7 years quite short, a mere few seconds in the ageless memory of John Kennedy. And I would pose this proposition to you, my fellow citizens, who bear the indelible mark of that day nearly 7 years ago. The delay, quite long to some of us sometimes, has given good and wise age to our best desire and our full intent. The shock of that day is largely healed. The sensitive rawness of penance is past. So this happy day we come proudly to pay tribute to the life of that winsome man, not his death. Down the years, these trees will grow to noble proportions and shed their shade on grass green in its season, and this handsome concrete and granite will mellow and ripen. To the generations to come, we will warmly and brightly and proudly honor the life of a bright, warm, proud, and forever young name that in this cherished plot of land shall never lose its luster. Thank you.
Now I would like to call on a man who not only happens to be one of the great architects of our age in the world, Philip Johnson, but a man who happens also to be just a heck of a nice guy and who has worked very long, very hard to see that the memorial is something that we will all be proud of for many, many years. Philip?
this cenotaph, this empty tomb, this empty room, this room where any of us can walk in and be separated from the daily life around us, where we can walk in and see nothing but the sky, the walls, the granite marker, the engraved name, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. This cenotaph is all that after all, I'm only an architect. The only way I have to express the feelings that I'm sure all of us had during these intervening years. This feeling of honoring a man that I loved and admired, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Thank you.
To complete our dedication service today, Bishop Thomas Shapey, Catholic Bishop of the Diocese of Dallas, will offer a dedicatory prayer.
Give peace, O Lord, to those who have hoped in you, and let your prophets be proved true. Almighty God, Father of us all, Creator of the heavens and the earth and of all things, we, your children, recall your greatness, your mercy, your kindness. We recall to mind this morning one of your servants, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, a man who served you by serving his fellow man in a sacred duty entrusted to him. We seek your aid, O Lord, as we dedicate this cenotaph in his honor, to dedicate ourselves to the things for which he stood, the majesty of your name, the consciousness of your presence, the vision of this country of which he was president, the ideals of freedom, liberty, and justice. Many hands and hearts have united to erect this memorial, which will bring to mind the courage, the dreams, and ideals of our leader. We are reminded of the words of St. John as he wrote them in the book of Revelations, and I quote, "Then I heard a voice from heaven say to me, write down, happy are those who die in the Lord. Happy indeed, the Spirit says. Now they can rest forever after their work, since their good deeds go with them." We are confident that these words aptly apply to John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
That film of the dedication ceremony was produced by Newsroom filmmakers Lou Staples, Charlie Young, and Caverly Stringer. The opening film was the work of Lou Staples. All right, Darwin, back to you.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that the initial impetus for this monument came from the citizens of Dallas and the state and the entire nation, because I remember after the assassination, and UNAC, I'm sure, do, that donations started pouring into the newspapers, to the city, and presumably to the county for this purpose, even when no such commission had been established. And so the money came, and I think so they had to do something about it. And the citizens donated some $225,000 toward this, and of this amount, about between $50,000 and $75,000 was donated to the Kennedy Library in Massachusetts. Lev Zetlin, who did the engineering for the monument, says that the monument is very unique and that it will be held in engineering literature in the years to come. And this is because of those vertical slabs, which appear to be floating in the air. Actually, they're being supported through tension from the adjoining slabs. And it's the geometric construction, he tells me, which holds the slabs together. There are cables going through, horizontal cables, which pull them together, but there's nothing underneath, if you'll notice. And this is quite a feat, because each panel weighs 12 tons, and there are 72 panels, and thus the entire thing weighs 1,728,000 pounds. So it's a pretty heavy monument, which appears to be floating.
Oh, Pat Reed, you talked to Philip Johnson, the architect, after the ceremony this morning, did you not?
Right, and we talked about what the monument looks like and what it means to people. Some people, you know, look at the monument and they think of it as cold and austere in its simplicity. But I think what people really want, these people really want to remember John F. Kennedy as he was when he was alive, and we think of him as being, you know, a warm, very alive person. But, you know, I asked Johnson, you know, how do you go about building a monument to a person that, as you know, he knew Kennedy, I don't think extremely well, but at least he had met him, knew him, and felt a very personal loss when Kennedy was killed. And he said that he thought about this, you know, what do you do for a monument? And he thought a statue would be ridiculous in this day and age when photography is so good and brings about that kind of likeness. And so what he decided to build was an empty tomb, an empty room, a 50-foot by 50-foot room without a roof. And he said that people have called it a dumb box, and he said that was okay with him if that's what they wanted to call it. And other people wanted to know when it was going to be finished. But he said what he had in mind was a room in which people could go and meditate, to feel the sky and the earth and, you know, to think about things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Pat, as a sidelight, Claude Maples, you were present in Berlin on that day when President Kennedy made that very famous speech. In fact, part of it on the soundtrack of Lou's film at the opening. Tell us about that day?
Well, I was very fortunate to be in Berlin at the time he made his Ich bin ein Berliner speech. We had to compete with each other, and many units could only send 2 troops, other than the troops which were already stationed in Berlin. And we competed hard, and we were rated on how spit-shine we were, and everybody polished. And this was the first time the GIs in Europe really competed with each other for this sort of thing. And when he said, Ich bin ein Berliner, I can't help but recall what the Der Spiegel magazine, which would be the Times magazine in this country, said. The whole continent of Europe resounded with, we welcome you, we welcome you, we welcome you. It was just a brilliant ceremony all the way around, and all that night, you know, there was beer, bust, and things, and everybody just had a good time, and you were proud to be American and proud to be serving in the armed forces at the time. It was an image like, I think General Paul Freeman said, he is a leader that we would all follow no matter where he says we should go. And I think most of the men rejoiced at this, and find troops rejoicing behind a general saying something about the president is a rare occasion.
That Berlin speech would probably have to be put with, of course, the inaugural address, and then also I remember the line that he opened when he was in France, and he and Mrs. Kennedy were in France, and they had gotten this tumultuous welcome of the people of France, and he got up at that dinner, you know, and he said, "I am the man who accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to France." These are...
There was a store in Mannheim, Germany that had a sign in the window at the time that if Jacqueline is king of the world, we know who's obviously the king.
Yeah,
the speech that he planned to give here in Dallas was a rather stirring, very notable speech, too, the copies of it. We can only guess what emphasis he might have put on it in delivering it, but you remember he talked about the watchman on the walls, guarding over the liberty and the freedom of expression.
Yeah. So. A.C. Green, it's been, well, almost 7 years now since the death of John F. Kennedy. What do you think the legacy is that he has left us as Americans?
Jim, I'll read an editorial that appeared in the Times-Herald shortly after the assassination, which I think still has a great deal of legitimacy. John F. Kennedy was a man with a great heart. Forget his politics for the moment and think about the individual. He had great compassion and understanding. If this were not so, he would never have come to Dallas. He never directly blamed the city for the bitterness of his political foes here. He looked on them as Americans, and as such, he was their president, just as he was president of all the rest of the people. Even when he came face to face with this bitterness in the White House, he calmly said that his critics had a right to their opinion and a right to be heard. Dallas was full of people who loved President Kennedy. Our city accorded the warmest welcome he had received in Texas, and before the shot was fired that took his life, the president felt this warmth and returned it. He recognized it for the genuine outpouring of goodwill that it was, and we have witnesses that he was moved by it, even as death's shadow lay across his path. There are no words that can express the sorrow that will dwell in the hearts of Dallas for years to come. But the blame for what happened here must not be placed at the feet of any political faction. President Kennedy, in a spirit of tolerance, understood politics and the differences of opinion that opposing factions generate. He would have been the first to defend the right to differ. The psychosis of hate, which was what operated to kill him, is a thing none of us can understand, but all of us deplore. Now in our grief, let us not sow new seeds of hate. John F. Kennedy would want Dallas to continue its status as a great American city, a city where truth and understanding stand guard over our public utterances and our private emotions. No matter how bitter or hard the task is, we must move toward this goal.
The author of those words was A.C. Green. Newsroom staff, thank you, Ace. Newsroom staff photographer Gary Bishop was there this morning when they dedicated the Kennedy Memorial. He focused his attention on the people in the crowd. That's Newsroom. Thank you and good night.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.